I found out a while back that the group Styx, or what's left of them, was going to be in Greenville, and their concert was going to include playing through the entire Grand Illusion album from start to finish. I was all in. And I leaned over and said to her, "Everyone else here is old." And her reply cut like a knife. "It's not just everybody else." I looked at my watch, it's 9:45, and I said, "It's past my bedtime." And Styx hasn't even come out yet. They hit the stage about a little before 10, played a solid set, played straight through their Grand Illusion and then a good number of their other hits. And when I woke up a few hours later, with my ears still ringing and my back aching and my pride stinging because I fit in with all those other old people there, I had this realization. I can no longer rock and roll all night and party every day. That's where our main character in Ecclesiastes finds himself in Ecclesiastes chapter 2. He is known as the teacher. And what was the name we gave him? Quincy. Man, you guys are following along. And Quincy has chased the dream. Quincy has not just chased one dream, he's chased every dream. He has jumped full throttle into what life has to offer. And in chapter 2, he begins to talk about it. And we see towards the end of our text today in verse 11 that he didn't exactly discover what he was hoping to discover. If you don't get anything else I have to say today, I want you to get this. Without Christ, your road to happiness ends in a ditch. We begin with Amusement Avenue. In Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, here's what he says. He says, "I said to myself, come on, let's try pleasure. Let's look for the good things in life. But I found that this too was meaningless." And that word for pleasure there in verse 1 doesn't necessarily mean in the Hebrew language hedonistic or sensual pleasure. It refers really to a good time. And isn't that something that we all like to have? The problem, though, is this. If we're not careful, we will think that a good time will somehow lead to a good life. We scroll and we stream and we self-medicate, not so much to find purpose in life, but to avoid the pain that life has. And we try to use good times to override all the bad that's going on. And the problem is the next morning always comes and we wake up and we've got to face reality all over again. And so he begins to realize that maybe Amusement Avenue isn't exactly what it's cracked up to be. On another road, we're going to call it Accomplishment Boulevard. He says, beginning in verse 4, he says, "I also tried to find meaning by building huge homes for myself and planting beautiful vineyards." In other words, what he's saying is this. I really thought that if I could accomplish a lot and build something with my life would be worth it and I would be fulfilled. It's the idea of performance and projects will build my identity and will build my worth. And he continues down what we're going to call acquisition road. He says, "I bought slaves, both men and women, and others were born into my household. I also owned large herds and flocks, and I collected great sums of silver and gold, the treasure of many kings and provinces." In fact, if we're not careful, we'll find ourselves in a place where we're not just buying stuff, we're letting our stuff define us. Anybody remember CC's Pizza there? And man, when you walked into CC's Pizza and you saw that buffet line of pizzas, it looked like a highway to happiness. They even had dessert pizzas. Man, and at first it looks like heaven. But 3 or 4 full plates later, you're sweating and you're bloating and you're miserable. And Quincy, who had gone down life's highway to happiness, who had filled his plate full on every road, had filled his plate full on every option offered on the buffet of this life, looks at it all and then says in verse 11, "But as I looked at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was all so meaningless, like chasing the wind." And notice this last phrase. He says, there was nothing really worthwhile anywhere. And we're on our way back, and we're somewhere on the expressway, and I decided that I had to have a cup of coffee. And so we just typed in Starbucks. You know, where's the nearest Starbucks? It made turn number 1, turn number 2, left, right, left. And when Siri finally said to me, "You have arrived at your destination," we were in front of a house in a quiet neighborhood. I followed the directions explicitly, exactly, but I wound up where I didn't want to be. And that's what the teacher is learning here. That the highway to happiness often ends in a ditch. He followed every turn that the world said to take, and he ended up nowhere. Is there a better road? I've got good news for you. Thankfully, there is. And in John chapter 15 and verse 11, Jesus says to his disciples, "These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full." And Jesus offers us something that's radically different. And interestingly, he doesn't say that we're to go out there and chase joy. He says something that's just the opposite. He says that what we're to do is to learn how to abide in him, stick close to him, follow him, walk with him, and then what he will do is take his joy and place it in us. That's how we stop chasing and really start living.